The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those Knuckleheads of Liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We're coming at you on January 9th, 2023. So, boy, I tell you, it's about, we just got through one set of elections, and I guess we get a breath for a couple years here before the next one, so we can all, I guess, fasten our seatbelts. Hope to get through this ride. But we have a nice break today. We have a special guest to talk with on the show. So let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. Sitting in today in our upper right-hand corner, we have Cole Brodine. He is an engineer in the state of Nebraska and was recently elected to the Elm Creek School Board there. So we're glad to have him on the show to talk with us about some Liberty issues today. And my name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host. So since we got Cole on, we wanted to talk about Nebraska because we don't get a chance to talk about that too much. So, you know, it's fun. It's kind of interesting to hear how Liberty is going in other parts of the country. So with Nebraska, James, maybe we could get some visuals up. This is, I pulled up a few statistics just so we could get sort of a snapshot. So this is state and local government debt in the United States. And so obviously for those of us here in California, we kind of know the situation, an awful lot of debt. We're leaders in the country on that front. And then you come all the way down here and you find Nebraska somewhere near the bottom. There it is. So apparently 15. Let's see, what is this in? So it's I guess about 15 billion in total debt for state and local governments versus California at a whopping 520. So it kind of gives you a sense of the direction different places are going. Then we have you know, migration is another thing we've been talking about. You know, all the U-Hauls are headed out of California. So if we look at the states and how they're doing in migration, you see California with a big negative here, and New York as well. So these are places people can't get out of fast enough. Nebraska is kind of hovering around static. They're just a little bit more exiting than coming in, it looks like. And as far as poverty rates, Nebraska does pretty well here. We look at the worst is Puerto Rico, and then you come down here near the bottom, and which is a good area to be in, and that's Nebraska's there. And then when we look at the overall Liberty Index that Freedom Ranking that Cato, I believe, gives on this, and they rank Nebraska right in the middle of the pack, around 28. So, Cole, how does that line up with your experience of living in Nebraska?
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of that. The poverty was a little surprising to me. I honestly don't see that much poverty, but I live in outstate Nebraska. Our population is very heavily on the eastern end of the state, and I'm more in the south central area, so I don't get to see some of that out here, I think. I was a little surprised that we're losing people at such a low rate because I know the farming communities just seem to be shrinking. I thought maybe we'd be losing people a little faster, to be honest. But yeah, I think otherwise it probably lines up fairly well with what I was thinking. There's a few things I honestly hadn't looked at these before and wished we were scoring a little higher on some of the fiscal and regulatory stuff. But I think we're doing okay for the most part where we're at out here. But yeah. It's a bit odd because we're divided so heavily. You know, there's 2 million people in the eastern in 2 cities in the state and 500,000 of us out here. So we don't get to see what happens in Omaha very often out here.
What is your main economic activity? Is it farming, manufacturing? What is it?
Yeah, agriculture is by far and away the number one. Number two is insurance.
I see.
In Nebraska. which unfortunately mostly revolves around agricultural insurance. So it's all corn and cattle.
By the way, I apologize to the audience. It looks like I pulled up a report from 2009 on this one for the Freedom Index. The others are all current, but this one's a little bit dated. So, anyways, just roll with us here.
I can't imagine we've changed a lot living here.
Yeah.
It didn't change a lot, and then we had a knucklehead, so you could expect that.
Yeah. Well, one thing I did notice is that everybody who's at least at the national elected office for Nebraska is a Republican. So it's definitely appears to be a conservative state. You guys got two Republican senators, Ben Sass, and I can't remember the other woman who's senator there, and a few representatives as well. So.
Yeah, we're very, very heavily Republican, although we are one of two states that can split our electoral vote. And we have, I believe Obama got one of our electoral votes when he was elected. So I think it's us and Maine split our electoral votes by congressional district. So it's not all or nothing in Nebraska. So, and Omaha does tend to lean a little more blue, which might still be pretty red for California, but here it feels blue.
I could guarantee you that it is. I could guarantee you that.
Yeah, I think the last Democrat I looked up fairly recently that we gave all our electoral votes to was FDR. So,
wow. Okay.
We're very consistently Republican here.
Okay. Well, unless either of you guys have any more to talk on this subject, I'll jump over to the next one. So, okay. Well, sounds like that's going to the next one then. So the schools, I mean, we're lucky to have Cole here. He was just elected to a school board, and we hear all this craziness happening around the country on school issues. And one of the more recent crazy issues that we had was in the Fairfax public schools. Apparently, they have an issue where equity is this big thing. And we definitely know about that in California, where, it's all about sort of some sort of social justice and somehow weighing the kids to make sure they all wind up in roughly the same place or something. And so in Fairfax, and this is in Virginia, the school was apparently so woke and so into this stuff that they wanted all the kids to sort of be equal. And so some of the kids, when they take these national tests, like the PSAT and other things to figure out how they're doing and how it's going to get them into college and maybe might qualify them for scholarships and other things, the school district decided not to share the information on a timely basis. They were kind of hiding it. And to the point where some kids missed out on scholarship opportunities because they felt the school district felt bad for the kids who didn't do well, so they didn't tell the kids who did do well that they did well, which is absolute insanity in my opinion. What do you guys think about this? I mean, this just sounds nuts.
But you see, this is where this whole thing about diversity, inclusion, and equity, and if you look at the acronym, it's DIE, okay? Diversity, inclusion, equity. This thing is going to kill our society. It's going to kill our education system. Because look at what happened here. You do not look, they are not celebrating merit anymore, right? These kids work very hard. They want to get into good schools and all that. We should be celebrating this. This is what we'll be looking forward to for our children to move forward in life. But instead, we have these people in our public schools teaching this poison of diversity, inclusion, and equity, and even to the point of hiding accomplishments from parents and kids. And the kids now, they have this little piece of thing that they have accomplished that they can tell to our college, well, look, I did this. I have a national merit commendation or whatever you call it, commendation. I have that. They couldn't even put that on their college application because they were not notified of it because of this diversity, inclusion, and equity. this poison is going to kill us as a society if we don't change it and change it fast.
Your grades are your grades. They belong to you. That's your achievement. And I think to hide that, for whether they're good or bad, doesn't help anybody.
Exactly.
If they're good or bad, you need to know. And the sooner you know what they are, the sooner you can react to that. Hiding it does no good to anybody. That this is the kind of stuff that everybody gets a blue ribbon, right? We all participated. Well, that doesn't teach our kids anything about grit or hard work or those kind of issues, right? Like, we're all the same. No, we're not the same. And it's important to know what your strengths and weaknesses are.
Yes.
So I don't think I could be in more agreement with you, Leon. This is big issue.
And the other thing about this too that goes a little bit beyond just the issue at hand. These are government officials. These are government officials suppressing information from the people who pay their salaries, right? And this is a real problem because we're seeing too much of this going on these days. And when we looked at the Twitter files and we saw government officials getting involved with Twitter, this was the FBI in this case, suppressing information and censoring people and all that kind of stuff. Now, if you look at this particular case, now we have government officials again hiding information from the general public. And the problem is we are paying these people salary and they're hiding stuff from us. This is a real problem.
Yeah. Well, imagine if they had a sports team at the school, how does that fit in with their equity, right? I mean, are they going to tell people to cover their eyes when one guy starts to run ahead of the other guys in a track meet?
Yes, exactly.
Don't look. One guy's ahead.
Yeah.
We can't have that. We can't have that, no.
It's my turn to win the 100-meter dash today, guys.
There you go. Well, and the silliness of how this is playing out, though, in different places, like here in California, we have an issue where with the University of California system, they've decided that they're not going to be accepting the SATs anymore. I think it's the SATs and the PSATs, I can't remember exactly all the, but essentially these national tests that are designed to objectively kind of place kids to decide, maybe a little bit on merit, who should be there and who shouldn't be there. And the idea that they've decided, well, we don't like the way that the finish line looks, so we're just going to get rid of the metric. And the crazy thing about this is, and we've kind of observed this before in the show, but is it, the people who are coming in from foreign countries, if they think the test is somehow biased and doesn't represent people, well, the people with the biggest disadvantage would be the people who are foreign students who are coming into the University of California, and they're smashing the math results over our, domestic students, and they're not really finishing that much worse off on the English side of things. So, it's like, how exactly is the test biased against one group or another if the group that literally doesn't even come from this country is doing well on it? It's absolutely insane.
This is the insanity of all of these things. You talk in terms of the University of California, Jason, you're talking about the SAT and the ACT. It is the insanity of this thing. How could a math test be biased? You think about that for a second, how crazy this is. I've said this on this program before. I learned calculus in a foreign country. Okay, I was 14 years old when I started doing calculus. You think I could have gone home and tell my father, that I really can't learn this thing because I'm black, or because I'm a Trinidadian, or because of whatever damn excuse I could have come up with? You think I could have gone home and tell my father this nonsense? But yet in the schools, they are saying being black or being Hispanic is a reason for not learning these things, is a reason for these people are not doing their jobs. Now, Jaime Escalante showed us what could be done when you motivate students to act. Jaime went into one of the worst areas in Los Angeles County, and taught mostly Hispanic kids calculus, and they did damn well. And they even did so well that the administrators thought they were cheating. But this is the problem. that these people have their preconceived notions, their racist notions about what blacks supposed to do, what Hispanics supposed to do, and what whites supposed to do, and what Asians supposed to do. They have these racist thoughts in their head. And now they're trying to implement it. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to put all of us in these little pigeonholes that is where you belong and that is where you shall stay. We thought we had a whole civil rights movement to stop this kind of madness. Okay? That is what I thought the civil rights movement was about. It was the content of our character, not the color of our skin. But now these people tell us it is reverse. They tell us it was wrong. Martin Luther King was wrong. It was really about the color of our skin. And these mad people tell us they embrace Dr. King and his message. They tell us that. What a lie.
A test. What they're doing is they're seeing the wrong thing here, right? They see black students and Hispanic students, people who aren't white, scoring poorly on this test, and they said the test is bad.
Yes.
Maybe that's not what you should take away from this. Maybe what you should take away is, like Leon said, we need to work with those groups. They're disadvantaged in some way, and the fact that they're scoring poorly on an exam shows you that they probably are disadvantaged in some way. But that doesn't mean get rid of the exam. Work harder to teach them the math that they need to be up where these foreign people who are coming in are at, right? Like, we need to change our math curriculum in those areas and focus on those groups who may be disadvantaged.
Exactly.
To teach them math so that they can get the same scores.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
And the point is too, okay, we know it can be done because Jaime Escalante showed us that this could be done. He showed us very clearly that it could be done. So it's not to say like, oh, there's some problem here that this cannot be done, blah, blah, blah. We know it can be. We know it can be. And I'm a living example of that, quite frankly.
And for those of you who don't know who Jaime Escalante is, we talked about him before on the show, but
Yes.
he was a guy who quit aerospace to go into teaching late in his career in East LA. And they made a movie about him because what he did was so extraordinary. He went into a place where they didn't even teach calculus, and he said, I want to teach calculus. And they told him, well, these kids can't do calculus. Right. And I mean, that's literally the bigotry of low expectations that they had for people in those areas. And he wound up essentially turning out more than 100 kids, I think, out of that school before the teachers union got rid of him, essentially. So, I mean, that's literally what he was up against, because he was changing the system and they didn't like, he was kind of doing it unorthodox ways, teaching off hours and all kinds of other things just to get these kids there. But it's kind of like you were saying, Cole, how can we help these kids to the starting line instead of just erasing the finish line?
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
it's such a difficult problem, I think, because math and science today make you very successful in life. And I may be biased as an engineer, but I feel like a lot of the best and highest paying and most reliable jobs revolve around math and science. You have to do something other people can't do or something other people won't do to make a lot of money. That's how free markets work. And by learning math and science, now I don't have to be a teacher because I can make more money doing something else, right? So these teachers unions come in and they say your math teacher should make the same money as your English teacher, should make the same money as your art teacher. And that's a problem because you need to incentivize people who are strong in the math and sciences to be teachers so that they can go into these places and teach these kids math and science so that they can come out, and some of them can go on to be engineers and scientists, and some of them can go on to be teachers and keep the cycle going. If we don't reward people who are doing something important, like teaching math and science, if we say a math teacher is the same as an art teacher, well, that's just not the case, right? You're teaching an incredibly valuable thing. And when you look at what jobs are hiring and what jobs people want, right? They're in the sciences and the maths and programming and these kind of things. So we have to promote those things to our kids and teach them those skills. I love art and I love music and those kind of things, but the economics don't show that we need more effort in those areas. The economics show we need effort in math and science. And to get skilled people in math and science, you cannot pay math and science teachers the same amount of money that you pay all the other teachers. It has to be based on merit, right? Which is where I think we probably all agree that's how pay should work. If you're good at your job, you should make more money.
Yeah. Well, and more to the point, and this is kind of why we like to see school choice as libertarians where it's possible, because when you're able to get school choice, those schools can adjust to what the market is demanding. So, I mean, if there's a lot of people out there, there's a lot of demand for people in STEM, then those schools can offer that. But right now it's kind of a one size fits all that fits none. And it's pretty sad. Oh, by the way, too, if you want to see more about Jaime Escalante, check out Stand and Deliver. They made a movie about him, so it's definitely worthwhile movie to check out. But speaking of school districts, they can't seem to. The school system seems to have kind of laid an egg on this one. But speaking of eggs, there's a problem in the country right now with eggs. And so we have this, let me jump to the story here. So the eggs have just skyrocketed. And I remember
the price of eggs, you meant, right?
Yes, the price of eggs had just skyrocketed. And, we've this is kind of a weird issue, but we've seen lots of prices go up because of inflation, lockdown policy, and all that. I guess eggs are a little more complex because there's some issues with an avian flu going around right now, too. But remember, before the pandemic, you could get a dozen eggs in a lot of places for, $1 or maybe $2 somewhere in there. And now, in California, my gosh, it's like $7 an egg. In California seems to be hit particularly hard. This is something from the USDA, and they're showing the rates. These are pennies, so essentially 739 is $7.39, and so they're showing large dozen eggs is over $7 in California. A lot of the other places in the country aren't hit quite as hard. They're in the $5 range, but pretty high still for the cost of eggs. And boy, I tell you, in California, one of the issues is we have this issue where they passed on the ballot about 5 to 10 years ago, somewhere in there, this issue where the eggs had to be from cage-free chickens. And so that's part of the reason why we're seeing these much higher costs, because I guess, you wipe out that population and then it's not even fungible. So you got cheap eggs in other parts of the country, or cheaper eggs, and it's much more expensive in California, to the point where, I don't know about you, Leon, but there's some stores you go to and you can't even find the eggs.
No, well, this is no joke. Recently, in the last 4 or 5 months or so, when I go to Costco, it's very difficult to get brown eggs. They always seem to have white eggs. At least one time, they may not have had even white eggs, but most times they always have white eggs. But I used to always buy brown eggs at Costco. You can't find brown eggs now. It's different. The last time I went, I couldn't get brown eggs because it's just crazy, man. These regulations that they have in this damn state.
We've seen a couple chicken hatcheries actually open up in Nebraska specifically to meet these California requirements, right? Because now we can make eggs with cage-free chickens here and make more money shipping those eggs to California. And what's really hilarious to me is when you look up what cage-free really means. Because if you look it up, cage-free doesn't mean they don't live in a cage. That cage-free means their cage is a little bigger. That chicken has somewhere he can walk back and forth. So it's not in an 8x10 cell anymore. Now it's in a 10x12. I mean, it's interesting to look up what California is actually requiring here. And it cut out all these other potential egg manufacturers, but I don't know what they gained as a person who lives in an agricultural area, other than $2 more for every dozen eggs.
Well, and I think to expect rationality out of any policies coming out of California is really like fighting, like Don Quixote fighting the windmills. Okay, because these people are insane about their regulations. They want to regulate everything in our lives. When I say everything, I mean everything. Every time you turn around, is some new regulation that they're trying to put on us. This thing about eggs, it's so nonsensical, it's unbelievable. Ironically, some of the eggs that cannot be sold in California are being shipped out of state to places where it can be sold. Okay, so we can't get the eggs. We're running around all over the place. There are people running from one store to the next to find eggs. We never used to have this before. When I first, well, it's been a long time since I've been living in California. I mean, probably up until a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, finding eggs was never a problem. Never a problem. But now we have this problem because of these ridiculous regulations that have gone in place and have no rational sense behind them. So, okay, if cage-free is an attractive thing to a buyer, to a consumer, well, then let the people who have the cage-free eggs sell them, and let the people who don't have the cage-free sell, or don't have the cage-free places, or the chickens or whatever. If they don't have it, fine, let them sell it too. Let there be competition in the marketplace, and may the best man win, period. Mm-hmm. But instead, these idiots think they could dictate everything to us. They want to tell us we can do this, or we can't do this, we should not do this, and we should not do that. This is the nonsense that's going on in the state that is destroying us. And California is in such a crappy place right now, and their eyes are just totally closed to that fact.
The one thing that gets me on some of these is that, we can see that California has a higher price than the rest of the country. And a similar story happens with gasoline in California, because we have a special blend of gasoline that we have for emissions, because in the summer when it's hotter, fuel with the high, what they call reed vapor pressure, tends to evaporate faster. And so they try and keep that RVP down in the summer. Special blend then for California because of our temperature profiles. But that makes us different than the rest of the country. And therefore, we're more likely to get shortages because we can't just grab more gasoline from another place if we want to use it here when we get short. But what do we hear every time? It's greed. It's what we hear politicians saying. We've got to investigate these guys every time, when the price is higher here. I haven't heard them start talking about greed with the eggs yet, but I'm sure we're going to hear that at some point.
Just wait. It's coming. I promise you it's coming. Okay, because this is what they do. They pass these ridiculous regulations, they pass them, and then when prices skyrocket, as they do because of shortages and whatever else, when the prices skyrocket, then we're going to hear only talk about price gouging, we're going to hear only talk about greed, and we're going to talk about, we must have an investigation of these people, when it is their ridiculous policies that are causing the problem. Oh, wait, it's coming. I promise.
As an outsider to California, this is always very interesting to me, because you wouldn't think this, but in a very agricultural area like where I live, we talk about California all the time, because we make ethanol, right? And if they do it in a certain way, they can sell it to California and make more money. We have a lot of pork production in this area, so I guess watch your pork prices, because I keep telling me around here that if they raise these hogs in a greener way, then we can sell it to California for more money. And eggs are no exception, right? We've got the cage-free laying facilities here in Nebraska, which, like I said, aren't truly cage-free, so I guess, but we get to sell these eggs to California and we make more money. Yes. So I guess if it makes you feel better, somebody's making more money on you guys.
Well, you better be careful. Our politicians are going to point to you guys in Nebraska and say, greed.
Point away. But, honestly, as an engineer, you guys know as good as anybody that part of the reason we're charging more is because it's costing us more to make it in this way, right?
Of course.
And then you get to pay to ship it all the way from Nebraska to California, which, if you've seen any shipping rates and how those have gone up lately, goodness, it's getting wild out there as far as shipping goes too. So we hear a lot about California here in Nebraska, and it's always interesting to me how it is changing our business community and the effects it's having on our businesses and our agricultural production here. I hear more about carb out here than you would maybe imagine. So we're even out here, we're affected by the changes that California is making.
But this is how these ridiculous regulations and policies and laws, this is how they cause this serious distortions in the marketplace. I mean, more power to you guys to be able to ship things in here and make a couple more dollars on your products that you have to sell, which is fine. I have no problem with living within the boundaries set up by these ridiculous politicians. But it does create serious distortions. These policies are creating serious distortions in the marketplace, which really are truly are leading to higher prices, which are hurting the people that these politicians claim that they want to help. It always does.
Well, speaking of bird brain politicians leading to distortions in markets, we're just about toward the end of our show, so I wanted to go to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, where we talk about some politician who said something goofy or crazy. And this time we're going to focus on Joe Biden, who you got to go back to Thanksgiving for this one, but he kind of said something, a little bit. He's always saying something that's leaving people scratching their heads. But this time he said, when he was pardoning a turkey, he apparently said to the guy who raised the turkeys, he said to him on the White House, he said, God love you, 9.5 million turkeys. I tell you what, that's like some of the countries I've been to. So I don't know. This is our commander in chief, and it's funny. Everybody talked about Trump and the things Trump said. I don't think Trump said anything as offensive as other countries being 9.5 million turkeys.
Well, it doesn't seem to bother people when Joe says it because he doesn't mean that. Right? That's his old grandpa.
Or he doesn't know he said it.
Or he don't remember. I mean, we gotta give this guy a break. Okay, this guy is America president. Okay, because this cognitively challenged idiot sat in his basement and he beat an incumbent president, which is a miracle in itself. So we gotta give the cognitive challenge, Mr. Biden, a little bit of a break because he can't remember nothing. He don't even remember that he's actually president because he's always calling Kamala the president. So give the poor guy a break. I hope someday soon he'll stop being president of the United States. But then he might have to deal with Kamala, which is probably might be worse. I guess I don't know. But we got to give him a break. The guy is gone. Seriously, gone.
Just go a little slack, I guess.
Yes.
I suspect he found 9.5 million turkeys in this country to vote for him, but that's another story. But that's about all the time we have today. But thanks so much, all of you, for joining us. And if you want to catch more on Cole Brodine, we interviewed him in another show about his win at the school board in Nebraska. So you can check that out to get a little bit more information on him and find out a little more about him. Cole, do you have any last thoughts before we leave?
I just want to thank everybody for having me on. This has been a lot of fun, and I'm glad everybody's listening to the school board and their local elections and thinking libertarian on that local level. That's important. So,
okay.
Anyway,
well, thank you. Thanks for taking up the fight for liberty in Nebraska for us, Cole.
Happy to
Thank
do
you.
it.
Well, thank you all, and we'll see you at the next one. Until then, stay free.
Thanks for being here, Cole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.